Hello everybody, I am TheHappyEgg and this is TheToughEggs. Today I am going to be building a diner-style restaurant in my city on Minecraft. And I wanted to show you how I would go about building that, and specifically how I've built mine to fit with my city. So as you can see, I start with the basic layout. I decide where each section of the building will be. In this case, the kitchen, the bar, and the customer seating area. At the same time, I'm deciding on the placement of my essentials, such as my windows, doors, and the roof. You might think it's very early to decide where the roof is going to be, but by deciding where it will be early on, I'm allowing myself to decide on the interior shape and design simultaneously, and letting myself decide on the height of the windows, as I personally feel it's easier to decide that once the roof is on. Now, the reason I feel that it's easier to decide that once the roof is on is just because you can better see how the building looks with the roof on it. So you build the basic layout and shape of the building, then you build some of the roof, mostly just the shape of the roof, and then you can decide on where and how big you're going to make the windows so that it fits the design really nicely. Once the height of the building, the windows, and the roof are designed correctly on the side section of the main building, that is when I will focus on the main building, deciding the height and the roof shape, window shape, general building shape as well. I know that the main section of the building is obviously very square, but once I've put the roof on, it won't be nearly as square. Especially once I add in all the other details alongside it, such as windows, window framing, door framing, etc, etc. You can see I play around a lot with the window shape and size. I actually started off doing a 1-block column in the middle of each window, and it was only partway through that I realized I wouldn't be able to fit the seating in a very nice way unless I had it as a 2-block gap. Obviously, I'm not doing the interior in this video, but whilst you're building the actual building, you need to consider the interior as you go. Because if you're not, then at some point you'll get to making the interior and you'll just have to redesign the building anyway. Now you can also see that I'm not just designing the window placement on the side building, but I also attempt to design it on the main building. I'm using, obviously, you can see I'm using window panes as opposed to blocks. That is because I feel that they're more aesthetically pleasing on buildings. However, I do also like to do a mixture of panes and blocks depending on which sort of window I'm doing. For instance, if I'm doing a window that's higher up on a building, I actually quite like blocks because they're better seen from a distance, especially if you're not planning to do much with the inside of that particular part of the build. You'll see here why layout is so important. As you see, I'm actually laying out the windows based around the positioning of the bar and the kitchen and the customer seating area. I also, as you see right here, I add in a little wall, which is going to be the separation wall between the bar area and the kitchen. There will be a doorway, which obviously leads through into the kitchen from the bar area. But at the same time, because of the design of this building and the fact that I am hoping for it to be a diner style building, I thought I'd add a big splash of colour to this build. Obviously, that is the interior design, and whilst the outside of the building, I feel it's important to match the rest of the buildings in your city, the good thing about interiors is that you don't really need to make them the same for every building. As long as the interior of your building looks amazing and you're happy with it, then that's fine. The thing with a big city like this is that you have to expect that everyone's going to have a different interior design. Obviously, I like personally for every building, every room in my city to be different because it shows that there is individuality throughout the city. It shows that people are living in it. Because let's be realistic, who actually has the exact same house as each other in real life? Specifically the interior though. Obviously there are many houses which look alike in terms of how they're built, however the interiors will always be different, and I think that's something great because it means you can build a ton of buildings which all match aesthetically throughout your city, but then the interiors can all be different, and that's what's going to make them special. As you can see right here, I decided on the floor to my building really early on. Now you don't have to do that, you can decide on the floor to your building whenever you really want to. I just wanted to because I had some ideas in my head, and frankly, if you have an idea for something, I feel like it's important to make sure you use that idea. You don't want to forget an idea, especially if it turns out to be a good one, and then have to sort it out later on and you can't remember it. So right here you see I obviously did a checkered pattern for the floor of the main area, and then for the bar area I decided to do the crimson planks. Now that's because I feel the crimson planks match the back wall well and stand out aesthetically, and I feel like the checkered pattern fits very nicely with the old diner style, like the 50s and 60s diner style creations. I love checkered floors in diners or even restaurants in general. I love the old diner style, and therefore I feel the checkered pattern fits really nicely with that style of building. For the kitchen area, I added a simple polished diorite floor because at the end of the day I wanted it to just look like it was a tiled white floor like you might find quite often in a kitchen. The kitchen also doesn't have as many windows. It has some higher up but not too many lower down because there's going to be a lot of equipment around that edge of the kitchen for cooking and making things on, etc, etc. So I wanted a little bit of light to be let into the kitchen, but I didn't want to take away from all the space for me to put kitchen equipment by adding in a ton of window. You can also see right here I start to focus a bit on the interior of the roof area over the customer seating area. I decided to mix it up a bit, and I used a bit of quartz blocks along with the normal stone that I've been using throughout the build. That way I feel it looks quite nice. I think if I'd just done a grey roof, that would be bland and boring and definitely wouldn't fit very well with the diner aesthetic. But at the same time, if I just did a white roof, I'd have a similar problem in that it wouldn't fit with the rest of the design, such as the design of the building. Whilst, like I say, you can make an interior however you really want it, there do have to be some considerations you take when you make it so that it matches with at least the majority of your building. You don't want the interior to be modern and chic whilst the outside of the building is, you know, insanely fantasy. And I feel like I'm hitting a pretty good mix of the two themes I'm going for, which in this case is the theme of the rest of my city and a diner theme. I think I'm hitting a pretty good mixture of those two, and I'm quite happy with how this build's gone in the end. So this is where I start to focus on the main dome shape. Obviously I designed a bit of the dome early on, but this was the point where I decided I might as well continue with that, just because at that time I couldn't actually think of what else to do with the rest of the build. So generally that is a bit of a tip. If you're trying to figure out something in your build and you're unsure of how to actually build it, maybe just take a break from it. Go and do something similar, some of the more grunt worky type thing, where you have to put in a lot of blocks just in a row. Just go and do some more simple work, and then usually the inspiration for the part that you're trying to come up with will actually just come to you. That's usually what happens with myself personally. I also decided to make the inside area of the roof on the customer service area a bit of an archway type thing. Obviously I didn't really do as deep arches with the quartz. I wanted there to be some differentiating design along the roof, and therefore I still wanted to keep that half quartz, half stone block feel, but at the same time I quite like the arch design as it also shows that there is some more support for that roof. Now up until this point I actually had no plans to build any sort of upper level to this building. However, given the height of the building, I felt it was needed at this point. Also because the kitchen needed some sort of roof, and I wanted to do some sort of overhang coming down over the bar. So I decided that I might as well use the space up above. So I'm actually going to make an upstairs area, which I'm connecting as you see right now. I'm going to make a little stairway that goes up behind the bar, and that is going to be a staff area of sorts, but it's going to have a nice view because of all the windows upstairs. I may even use that area as some sort of storage area for maybe bar equipment or something. Originally I decided to use white concrete for the floor just because I wanted a white roof in the kitchen and a white floor upstairs, and then I realized I'd already used quartz on the other part of the building, so it makes way more sense just to use quartz again. So that's exactly what I did there. It was at this point when I'd finally done with the balcony that I decided I'd finish off the roof. Originally I was contemplating adding in a skylight to get even more light into the building. However, I had already realized that I'm going to have a ton of windows all around the building anyway, and there's no need for a skylight when there's that much light already coming into the build. So then you can see I started to focus on the design of the windows on the upper area. I was considering maybe trying out some circular designs and trying out some more complicated pieces, but in the end I just decided to do a simple window frame with obviously the arch that was already there, and then just add a few more blocks in to add some more framing, and then again I used the glass blocks on the upper level as I felt that they were more in fitting upstairs. I feel like the panes wouldn't quite have been right for the upstairs, especially since you can't really get that close to them anyway, but I just felt they look a lot nicer. You'll also notice the upper area just above the door frame and in between the upper windows is also made out of those glass blocks, just because I personally felt that was better. So the downstairs is panes, the upstairs is blocks. Those blocks are also a different color. You'll notice the downstairs is a light blue as it's easier for customers to see out of. This was my thought process anyway. And the upstairs is a darker blue, so it's more like a tinted window on the upstairs, since that's where the staff is hopefully going to be able to go. It was then when I was done with all the windows and stuff that I decided to add a bunch more detail to the rest of the building in the form of some more sort of window framing, more of a door frame. I used some upside down black stone stairs to add a nice frame to the underneath the window, and then I even added some fence posts all the way along the outside to make it look more like a sort of balcony type thing with an actual edge to it. I just felt that was a nice aesthetic. I added an extra arch above the actual window frame because I felt like it was too sunk into the build. I wanted it to stick out more since that was the outside. You'll notice on the ground I actually left a gap where the build is anyway on purpose, because I knew at the end I would add in a bunch of little details around the outside, so I wanted to make sure there was enough space for me to safely do that. So it was at this point that I started focusing on the back of the building. I noticed there's this large space which I originally considered to maybe make some sort of back area with like dumpsters and stuff, as you might have in real life. However, this city obviously isn't really going to have dumpsters. I don't plan on making like garbage trucks or anything for this city. So I felt it was more in keeping with the rest of the city to make this more of a natural plot of land. So as you see, I started by making some fences, and I was going to make a nice fenced in area. However, I decided against that, and I instead put down a little plot of grass, and I added in a couple of trees, one rather large one. And then what I like to do personally, and this is kind of the way I sign off all my builds, is that I add a bunch of nature to them in the form of my own bushes and trees and leaves, which I add like so. So for the final bit of this video, I actually decided to add a name to my diner, and then I decided to add another little sign with the exact same thing, this time with sea lanterns behind it to sort of mimic the neon light sort of signs that you might see on the side of a diner, and I just put that one on top. So yeah, that was the end of my build. I hope that you liked the build. Obviously I've not done the interior, however I may do the interior in another video if anyone is interested. I hope you guys like my build. I hope maybe it gave you a bit of an insight into how I build in Minecraft, and I hope it gave you some ideas for you to use for your own build. So thank you for watching, and have a nice day.